it.
Okay,
Hang on.
thank you.
It takes a few seconds. Okay, we're live.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. Today is Wednesday, February 17th. This is the work session of the Criminal Justice Public Safety Committee. I'm Senator Susan DeChambeau. I will tell you that I represent my hometown of Biddeford and the surrounding towns of Dayton, Lyman, Alfred, Arundel, and Kennebunkport. I'll turn it over to my co-chair, Representative Charlotte Warren.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Charlotte Warren, and I represent the city of Hollowell and the towns of Manchester and West Gardner in the House. And how about if we go around, and I'll start with Senator Lawrence.
Thank you very much, Representative. I am State Senator Mark Lawrence. I represent Southern York County, which is Kittery, Elliott, York, Ogunquit, South Berwick, and Berwick. And I apologize in advance. I have a dog that occasionally Zoom bombs my legislative work sessions and hearings. So if his head appears, I apologize.
Thank you, Senator. How about Senator Searway?
Good morning. I'm Senator Scott Searway, and I represent District 16, which includes Waterville, Winslow, Fairfield, Benton, Albion, Clinton, and Unity Township. Good morning, everyone.
And Representative Pluker?
Hi, I'm Bill Pluker. I represent Warren, Hope, Appleton, and part of Union. Thanks so much.
And Representative Morales?
Good morning. My name is Victoria Morales, and I represent House District 33 in South Portland.
Representative Lookner?
Hey everyone, my name is Grayson Lookner, represent District 37, which is part of Portland, out by the airport and the Fore River.
Representative Sharp?
Good morning, I'm Representative Sharp from District 46, North Yarmouth, Durham, half of Pownell.
Representative Costain?
Good morning, Dan Costain, House District 100, which is Etna, Dixmont, Newport, Plymouth, and Corinna.
Representative Rudnicki?
Good morning. I'm Shelley Rudnicki. I represent House District 108, which is Fairfield, Mercer, and Smithfield. I just need to say one thing before we move on, is that I'm finding this very difficult, and I don't think that we are giving our constituents and the people of the state of Maine the best service by doing all these Zoom meetings. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative. And I know Representative Pickett is here somewhere, or maybe signing on. Okay, great. He's signing on. All right, Senator, take it away.
Okay, thank you. Now that we've done the introductions, we have 4 bills today, and our plan for today for this committee is at 1 o'clock. We have another commitment, another Zoom meeting that we will attend. So though you're all lucky, you're not going to be here for 8 hours. So I would like to begin. I've been asked, and my co-chair agrees, due to some time constraint of Senator Stewart, we're going to begin with LD 28. I then will go to LD 13, followed by LD 58, and end with LD 180. So, oh, I did not introduce, and I apologize for that. Also with us is our policy analyst, Jane Overton, and our committee clerk, Deb Fahey. And so today—
And Senator?
Yes.
Senator, we've been joined by Representative Pickett and Representative Newman, so let's have them introduce themselves.
Yeah, go right ahead. Representative Pickett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Richard Pickett. I represent District 116, the towns of Canton, Dixfield, Hartford, Mexico, and Peru.
Thank you. Representative Newman.
Yes, Dan Newman. I represent District 76, Belgrade, Rome, Mount Vernon, Fayette, Vienna, and Wayne.
Thank you. So the first bill we'll be looking at is LD 28. The title of that bill is an act to create an alert system to notify the public when a person with an intellectual or developmental disability is missing. The sponsor of the bill is Senator Stewart. I'm a little rusty from last year. I believe we turn it over to our policy analyst to present to us what she has gathered since our last meeting, our initial meeting, and any kind of research. She did provide that to us. Some of you, I hope all of you, are looking at it. So that's LD 28. Thank you. Ms. Overton, Ms.
Sure.
Overton, yes.
Yes, hi. Well, this is LD 28, an act to create an alert system to notify the public when a person with an intellectual or developmental disability is missing. The bill provides really for a new kind of alert system. We're familiar with the child alert system and with the silver alert system, and this bill proposes another one for minors with developmental and intellectual disabilities. And I know that there has been some conversation about the bill. Before we can turn to that pretty quickly. Before that, I would just mention to you that Megan Swanson, who was a constituent of Senator Stewart's, was asked to provide information on the other states that have alert systems for children and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And there is a list that she provided to you. I sent that to you. It is also on the bottom of the first page of the bill analysis form. So there are 17 states, and I thank her for providing that information to you. I think really we should just take a shortcut, if you like, Senator and Representatives, to the proposal that I think is coming to you from Senator Stewart.
Senator, you're on mute.
I'll have to speak louder if I'm on mute anyway. You know, I'd say such brilliant things when I'm on mute. So anyways, yes, thank you, Ms. Overton. Senator Stewart called me and he's got some information to share to add to what Ms. Overton was saying. So I will turn it over to Senator Stewart.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. Appreciate just a couple minutes of your time this morning. Since the public hearing, which I think was a week or two ago at this point, we've had a number of discussions, and one of which was quite fruitful with the Department of Public Safety. Officer Brody Hinckley is, I think he's on this call this morning, and should be able to help if there are any specific questions. But essentially, the path of least resistance, which we seem to have found as it relates to the goal of this bill, seems to be to just roll it in as the current system exists right now, with a silver alert that is a state-based program for missing individuals. And so when that happens, there's a number of criteria that are followed. And the compromise solution that we came to and are in agreement on would be to simply add another couple of questions in that process, specific, such that you would be able to incorporate more people that would have some certain risks around them and possible dangers to their health because of things like their age, a predisposition, a pre-existing health issue, mental or physical disability, or other things like environment or weather conditions in the company of a potentially dangerous person or some other factor that might lead the person to be in peril. And additionally, from there, you could also incorporate other information that could assist in the recovery of the person. Things like greater information than just what is captured right now, that would particularly be helpful to know for folks who are assisting in that recovery, that could include health conditions or physical or mental disabilities. And again, you'll recall from the public hearing that the current system, the Silver Alert system, is really geared towards elderly folks who have a health or a mental condition that might make it hard for them to return home safely. And this would simply expand that. Again, I think it captures a number of the feedback that we received at the public hearing, including one bit of concern, which was that you don't want to have too many different types of alerts. We have the Amber Alert on the federal level and the Silver Alert on the state level. And that when you do start to expand into these other categories, it might desensitize the public if you expand too far. But at the same time, there's this identifiable need to address particularly this population of individuals who we're talking about here with this bill. So I will stop there, Madam Chair, if you have any questions or if anybody else wants to jump in. Thank you.
If I may, Senator Stewart, if for the members, you'll recall we had testimony from the Director of Consolidated Emergency Communications Bureau of Public Safety, Brody Hinckley. And page 2 of his testimony is somewhat what Senator Stewart was just alluding to, is the language for the Silver Alert. So I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Senator Stewart, that's pretty much where you've landed to probably tweak some of that language. Is that correct?
That is correct, Madam Chair. You know, I guess I would defer to Officer Hinckley on some of the specifics, but it is captured in that email, which we had forwarded you last night. I don't know if you received that or not, but I'm happy to forward that to the committee or the analysts as well, if that would be helpful.
Good, thank you. Well, I see a couple of hands up. The first one was Representative Ranicki, followed by Representative Pickett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Stewart, are you still looking at any individual, or are you looking at just children now? I know at one point there was talk of moving it back to minors. So are we still looking at just minors, or are we looking at any individual?
Thank you for the question, Representative. With the current proposal, where the Silver Alert already applies to individuals who are senior in age, it would apply to others as well. Of course, if the committee wanted to say, we really want to narrow the scope, you could do that. You know, I think that the way that the proposal was written, it captures some of those concerns that were brought up at the public hearing about the liberties of adults to be able to, you know, still live their lives, even if they have a intellectual or developmental disability, but at the same time is recognizing that there are instances where you could potentially have a very hazardous situation, even if somebody is over the age of 18. So we tried to reflect both of those concerns. Of course, it's a decision that's ultimately in your hands at this point, whether you want to narrow the scope. And in conversing with Officer Hinckley yesterday about this, that there's really not a way that the system would be engaged anyway without the parent or legal guardian who was initiating that contact with the police to get it going to begin with. And from there would then follow the protocol for your silver alert beyond that. So it's sort of baked in, if that makes sense, on the minor's end.
Okay, Representative Pickett.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, the bill itself we have here, it says about implementing an alert system. It's requiring the Department of Public Safety to develop and implement an alert system. And then we've got, Senator, we've got, I think, three amendments that you had spoke of and regarding to what you'd like to see in this bill as well, on our analyst report that we have here. My problem is right now is that we've talked about a lot of things. It sounds like you've done a lot of work and everything, but with this environment we're working in, it's hard for us to really be able to know what's going on, because there's a lot of information coming in we're not getting until the day we get here to the hearing, or sometimes after we're already here and stuff. So and the question two questions I have is, one is I'd like to know if we've even thought about at all if there'll be any kind of a fiscal note with this. And secondly, I'd like to just know if you folks are in a position now where you could provide the amendment for us written right out, so exactly what you are looking to have done, so that we can do what you're trying to accomplish, what the stakeholders are trying to accomplish in this whole situation. It is a very important issue. There's no question about it. But I would feel much better of tabling this bill today. And I am going to put in a tabling motion until we have that in front of us, so that we can work it and really do the right thing and the right thing by this bill. Thank you. I will make a motion to table.
Okay, Representative Pickett, I think we should probably turn it over to I don't know what to call you, Brody Hinckley. I don't know if you're an officer or what, so I apologize. I think we could hear if we've already heard, Mr. Hinckley, which path you're going to. Both the sponsor and yourself got together. Are you ready to speak of a possible amendment in that what Representative Pickett said, we would wait for that amendment? So I turn it over to you.
Sure. I'm Director Hinckley, by the way, not Officer
Director,
Hinckley.
great. All right.
On a fiscal note, I don't believe there would be any fiscal note. The system is already in place. It would just be upgrading the language within the Silver Alert to accomplish what we want to accomplish.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would like to sit down and fine tune the language in the Silver Alert program. I believe we're right there, but we just need to fine tune it some more.
Okay. Representative Warren.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would agree with Representative Pickett that I'm not interested in taking a vote until I can see something in writing. But just a reminder of the rules. If you are speaking first, you are not the one to make the tabling motion. And but suggesting, as you did, Representative Pickett, that you'd like to see this tabled, that's great, but you're disallowed from making the motion then. But I agree, I'd like to make sure other folks don't want to weigh in before we move on to another bill. I really want to see everything in writing before we take a vote. So thank you.
I'm ready if anybody wishes to make a motion on this or wishes any more questions to be asked. Oh,
I'll make-
Representative, I have Representative Renecki has her hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move that we table this until we have the actual bill amendments in front of us, please.
Thank you. Is there a
I'll
second
second.
to that?
I'll second.
Okay. There's no discussion on a tabling motion, so I will take a vote. We'll get a roll call vote. Where is our clerk? Ms. Fay, you ready to ask for a roll call?
Yes. Representative Warren,
Yes.
Representative Morales,
Yes.
Representative Reckitt,
Yes.
Representative
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
Representative Lookner,
Yes.
Representative Pickett,
Yes.
Representative Costain,
Yes.
Representative Rudnicki,
Yes.
Representative Newman,
Yes.
Representative Pluker,
Yes.
Senator Lawrence,
He may have just stepped out, yeah.
Senator Searway,
Yes.
Senator DeChambeau,
Yes. So it's a unanimous vote. Thank you. And we hope to get this back real soon so we can keep going here, all right? So Senator Stewart, you're all set? Good, thank you. Moving right along. We're up to LD 13. Representative Renecki, okay, you're up, okay. Thought I saw your hand up. LD 13, an act to coordinate the delivery of individuals committed to the Department of Corrections. Ms. Overton.
Hello. This is LD 13. I won't reread the title again. And it is sponsored by Senator DeChambeau and submitted by the Department of Corrections. Let me see if I can share screen. Yes. Okay. We'll just have to sort of learn as we go along. I sent the bill analysis out, I think it was yesterday, so that you would have it before today's hearing. And I know my secretary this morning was working on getting it posted to the committee materials website under LD. But in case people haven't had a chance to read it, this one's one page, so it fits right on the screen pretty well. But I certainly want to do things the way you want them done. And if you decide that, let's just get some experience with different ways of working. But if you decide that you really don't want to see the bill analysis form, you'd rather be able to see each other, just tell me at any time, we'll stop the sharing. But under Title 17A, Section 2304, which is in the Vertigo book on page 247, if you have that in front of you. When a person is sentenced and committed to the Department of Corrections, the sheriff or the sheriff's designee notifies the Commissioner of Corrections or the Commissioner's designee and inquires which correctional facility delivers the person to. The Commissioner determines the appropriate facility and informs the sheriff. And the sheriff then transports the person to that facility. the law does not state who determines the time of the delivery to the facility. So this bill was submitted by the department and sponsored by Senator DeChambeau. It requires the commissioner and the sheriff to coordinate the date and time of delivery by the sheriff's office. It doesn't change the duty of the sheriff to transport or the department's authority to specify the correctional facility. It is just about what time, is there a set time for delivery that is agreed upon through the commissioner and the sheriff, and that's provided in the law. The sponsor presented the bill. There was testimony. There was no testimony opposed to the bill, and there were no amendments proposed. There was some discussion about the pandemic having forced DOC, Department of Corrections, and the jails into some new procedures for delivering jail prisoners, and about the benefits of coordinated delivery, providing for necessary staffing, reducing wait times, ensuring separation of men and women prisoners, and better management and safety of intake and the intake room at the facility. There was an inquiry about whether DOC could use a policy instead of a new law, in response to which Commissioner Liberty stated that the DOC policy lacks authority to force compliance with the jails with regard to transportation. And one member inquired about DOC staff receiving hazard pay and sheriff's office personnel not receiving hazard pay. That's all that I have. Do you want me to keep that bill analysis up, or do you want me to take it down so you can see each other?
I would prefer that it be brought down now so I can see who's got their hand up. I'm looking
Sure.
at the participants. Thank you. Okay.
Jane, I do want to thank you so much for sending that to us, those to us yesterday. That was a real help. So thank you for that. I see Representative Pickett has his hand up.
Yes, Representative Pickett.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Also in that section 2304, it goes on to say the commissioner or the commissioner's designee has complete discretion to determine the initial place of confinement. And in making that determination, the commissioner or the commissioner's designee shall review all relevant information, including any available mental health and so on and so forth, which leads me to the same thing that I said in the committee. I think this issue is taken care of in current law. I think that that it can be dealt with in policy. I don't think we need to be creating another part of policy here, another thing in here. I think we're talking, I believe there's 16 county jails or 15 county jails, 16 sheriffs, and we're not talking about. We're talking about a communication between them. And as I said before, on the day of the hearing, I had to deal with 3 jails, a couple of holding facilities, their policies and stuff I had to go by. If they changed those policies, they made sure I knew about it, and they were in charge. I had to do things the way they wanted. When I delivered somebody there, it was the way they wanted it done. I don't see why it can't be done the same way right now without codifying it in law and mandating the sheriff, the sheriff to have to do this or do that, or vice versa. So I just really believe that this is a bill that's not needed. Thank you.
Senator Searway.
Senator Searway, sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you, Senator DeChambeau. I just wanted to ask the commissioner if he could just, I know he's, he mentioned that, some jails are doing it right and some he had some problems with. And I didn't know if, I know when I worked in the jail, we had to do policies, and we had to match up with DOC standards, and didn't know if a letter maybe from the committee or something, maybe just recommending a policy to be put in for this might be sufficient rather than making it a law. I'm kind of swaying towards Representative Pickett in a sense that, we keep making these laws and this seems like it could be just a policy. So I don't know. I just wanted to have it clarified with the commissioner on that.
Commissioner, would you want to make a statement or respond to that?
Yes, good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all. This is really an opportunity for us to enhance the work that we've been doing during the pandemic. And the pandemic provided us an opportunity to enhance the communication between the county correctional facilities and our receiving DOC facilities. And that's all this is. It allows us to further enhance and require us to actually coordinate and enhance our communication, which is a win for the residents in our care and the receiving facilities. I would ask if you could oblige me for a moment. I'd like to have Warden Scott Landry speak for a moment. He's the primary receiver of all of the incoming residents in our care. If I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, you may. Yes. Warden Landry, welcome and hello.
Thank you, Senator. Good to see you. Thank you, Commissioner, and good morning, everybody. Yes, we are the reception facility for the department. The overwhelming majority of intakes do come to the main correctional center. So as far as which facility they're going to is nearly a foregone conclusion. In our experience, the counties have different pressures of their own. They have their own population pressures and other things, sometimes competing interests with one another. And sometimes just for the sake of efficiency, they may prefer to come today instead of tomorrow. And there comes a point where there really does need to be somebody who is the centralized coordinator and decision maker of specifically when somebody is going to arrive. Intake is a very complex operation, and there are many different things that occur in there. COVID has revealed some really significant public health considerations. For example, if you have different counties arriving at the same time, in the past, they've been able to just kind of stack up 2 vehicles in the garage, intakes being processed from different counties. So play it out. If one person were infected with COVID, not only are you potentially introducing that into our facility, the counties could be passing it from one county to another and then taking it back. We have male intakes that need to be separated from female intakes, which we have not done well in the past because we have not been able to specifically coordinate the time of arrival, which allowed counties to show up whenever it was convenient for them. The mixing would occur. You'd have a number of residents, male and female, being held in a single holding cell or nearby to each other and proximal to each other. Not optimal at all when you're considering trauma issues and things such as that. So the timing really does matter a lot. And we have enjoyed a very positive working relationship with the counties, especially since COVID has emerged. It's one of the benefits that's come from this. But we really would do well to capitalize on the coordination and things that we have created in response to this. And so that, if this thing stabilizes, that we still can retain and sustain the practices that we've created, which my feeling is that they were long overdue. And I would argue that the feedback we've heard from the counties has been very, very positive, that this has been better for them. They know they have a slot that when they're coming, that is their slot. They're not going to be stacked up, waiting excessive lengths of time. We can receive paperwork in advance of their arrival, which actually helps us to make better informed decisions. If you have somebody coming in with transgender issues or conflict issues with another resident, health considerations, not in the past, we haven't received that information in advance, where now we are, and we can actually understand what we're going to be experiencing when somebody arrives, and just do a much better job at meeting them at the door and coordinating those efforts. So I think that having the authority to kind of coordinate the timing of arrival has been extremely beneficial, and I would certainly recommend that we solidify that in statute.
I have raised hands of, they are Representative Costain, followed by Representative Renicki, followed by Representative Morales for questions. Representative
Chair.
Costain, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my concern is, I share some of the concern with some of the sheriff's officers. So what if you decide today that you're not going to take prisoners for a couple of weeks if this bill is passed? So you're not going to take prisoners for a couple of weeks. My understanding is that once they're turned over to you, they're not getting paid in the county jail for this time. So I mean, if you decide, well, like you did with COVID, and I understand why you did, that you didn't want those people down there, when they kept them for an extra month or so. So can you talk about that and let me know if a policy, if why a policy which each sheriff's department has a time frame, why couldn't that just be a policy? Why does it need to be a law?
I may. Thank you, Representative. That's a good question. So if you have 15 county facilities that are transporting residents to MCC, let's say, you can imagine there's a scenario at times when there may be 3 or 4 counties waiting to process. And as Warden Landry indicated, it's more complex than just males coming in. There could be males, there could be females, there could be individuals with special categories, it could be conflicts, it could be all of that. And so this would allow us to actually coordinate rather than us say the policy is we receive residents between the hours of 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock, and then we shut down for count and we receive them from 1 to 3. It reduces those bottlenecks and reduces those conflicts. As far as the department saying they're not going to receive residents, in my experience, that's only been during COVID, during a national pandemic, which I think everybody agrees that it makes sense not to cross-contaminate facilities. And so we take those residents regularly. There may be a day or two, depending on what may be happening, if there's an outbreak or something going on. Regarding the payment of counties, you mentioned that. I'm not sure what question you may have regarding that. As you know, the state pays $18.5 million toward the county jails. The county jails now are at about 50 to 60% occupancy, empty beds throughout the system. So I'm not sure if that created an issue. If there's a financial shortfall at the counties, we have a $3 million supplemental that they request to augment any shortfalls they may have. And we've paid out, I believe, $1.5 million in this fiscal year to any shortfalls that they may have. So there are no deficiencies there fiscally. I'm not sure as far as being paid. I don't know. They received their 18.5 according to average daily populations, which this year was significantly lower than anticipated. So that surrounds the fiscal sort of question, I guess. The 18.5 is allotted to them. The $3 million for supplemental, if they have a shortfall, is allotted to them. So I hope I answered your question.
You did. I got one follow-up, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Sir, what is right now in the state prison? What is the number of vacant beds? What percentage in the state prison are and is there?
The reduction at the, let me see, I don't have it right in front of me today. We have almost 1,700. We also have an additional 500 excess beds. So the populations are low throughout the system.
Thank you.
Representative Renicki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Warden Landry mentioned that throughout the pandemic, Everything has been working. You've been coordinating throughout the pandemic. Why do we need a law when you can continue with the same type of coordination you've been doing if it's been working since since during the pandemic? Why not just continue as you are and just make that a policy of corrections, and the counties have to follow that policy anyway?
Thank you, Representative. It really comes down to voluntary compliance. If the county jails wish to follow the delivery of the residents at a particular time, they may. If it's not in statute, they may not. That's the purpose of the request for the statute, is to, voluntary compliance is great if they comply, but if they do not, it causes a bottleneck and causes conflicts with particular populations of the residents.
Can I have a follow-up, Madam Chair?
Yes, yeah.
But if you control the prison system as commissioner and you make the policy and they don't comply, can't you say we're not taking them? I mean, doesn't that make more sense than actually putting something in statute?
For me, it makes more sense to coordinate, enhance communication. Anything we can do to enhance the communication and coordinate our efforts, that makes sense to me. To force a policy on the counties that they may or may not agree on and may or may not fit each one of the counties efficiently is challenging.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I heard that question a little differently. Could you just briefly advise us as to what that responsibility or that relationship is between the State Department of Corrections and individual counties, such as jail standards where you have authority to inspect? But as far as your policies, that's what you were just saying, some may follow, some may not. What recourse, if any, do you have?
Sure. Thank you, Senator. So if you look at the statute now, it uses terms like notify. The county shall notify. And then it says the Department of Corrections shall inform. So it's not a communication. They say we have an inmate and we tell them where to dump them. That's what the statute says now. It's a very non-communicative, non-coordinated, coordinated system. And we're trying to get away from me telling them telling me we have an inmate and me saying, bring him to MDOC. What we'd like to do is we'd like for them to pick up the phone and have a conversation about the inmate. Maybe if they've quarantined, maybe if they have conflicts, maybe if we can they have some sort of potential medical need. Something we can talk about in an informed way so the resident is benefited rather than just transporting like a commodity. We would much rather coordinate and collaborate and enhance our communication so we can deliver the best service we can to the resident in our care.
I have Representative Morales and then Representative Pickett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, Commissioner. Hello, Warden Landry. I'm getting the feeling that there's been some workup to submitting this bill and that there has been some process. So my question is around, I understand the need to coordinate and it makes a ton of sense to me, but I also hear sort of the concerns of, you don't want to force them to do that by policy, but yet by asking us to create a law, we are in fact, you're forcing us to put a policy on the county. So I want to know, kind of stepping back from you guys, submitting this bill, what has been done to coordinate? Have you met with all of the counties, had a meeting to talk about what could a phone call look like? What kind of information can you all provide us so that we really can meet these very intricate nuances that are just inherent in our system? Every county is different. Every sheriff is different. And so tell me about what you've done so far and why hasn't that worked? And then why that should make us all understand as to why we're here today.
Sure, thank you. Good question. So what we've done during the pandemic is we've enhanced our communication and coordinating. And so some of the things we talk about is we discuss and review commitment paperwork. ensuring that each one has a sentence that's appropriate for DOC and where they'd be placed. We also discuss any no contacts or victims' concerns. Prior to the arrival, we talk about medical concerns and issues that may be relevant and medical packets. We want to make sure that during the pandemic, they've been quarantined. And we also make sure that the scheduling for the receiving of the residents is appropriate and our staff is appropriately staffed for that time frame. And so we've talked about all of those things. And what this request for legislation does is it tries to capitalize on those enhanced communications. In my business, whenever we can enhance communication and collaborate and work as in partnership with the counties, it works much better than me saying, I'll take residents between 9 and 11, 1 and 3, and if you arrive after 3, we're not taking them. That sort of, I've been on both sides of this, and as you're aware, as Sheriff of Kennebec County, and sometimes it's challenging on both ends, whether they, if court winds up at 2:30 and you try to get down to the person in time, and the policy says 3 o'clock, and the resident arrives at 3:10. All that crisis happens, and it's unnecessary if we can just communicate and collaborate with each other during this process. And you're correct. Every county has a different climate, different leadership, different resources, and so it's very challenging that way. And so that's why we'd like to enhance communication and work in collaboration.
If I may have a follow-up, Senator.
Go ahead, Representative Morales.
Yeah, and I think my question was more towards the process. So what have you done to bring together all of the sheriffs to have this kind of discussion around coordination? Have you had a series of meetings with the sheriffs about this particular topic?
Yes, we have. And that's how we arrived where we are today regarding COVID. We meet every day at noon and we talk about COVID-related issues. And there are normally multiple sheriff's offices that are in part of that discussion. Our classifications director, Ben Beal, has been coordinating with the counties to ensure the effective and efficient and safe transfer of residents. We've worked this very extensively during the last 6 months to make sure we had a good coordinated effort. And I think that if Sheriff Morton's asked, well, he can weigh in, he can speak for himself, but we've done a lot of work in the last 6 months to ensure an efficient transfer of residents to our facilities.
Thank you.
And I believe it was Representative Pickett, followed by Representative Warren.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I have to go back to, I believe that all of the authority to do what the Commissioner just was talking about has already been taken care of in the law where it does say there under 2304, the Commissioner or the Commissioner's designee has complete discretion to determine the initial place of confinement. And making this determination, the Commissioner or the Commissioner's designee shall review all relevant information, which is the relevant information that was being discussed right there, the conversation, the talking back and forth between the jails. If you set out a policy and the jails know what your policy is, and they know that if there's some kind of a concern that's not the normal routine transfer, they're going to, that they need to bring it to their attention or something of that nature. I mean, I'm not trying to make a big deal out of this. I just think that we're saying about we don't want to mandate the sheriffs to do anything, but yet we didn't have any problem in the mandates and the policies that we went over earlier with the DOC brought out and stuff on the jails and different things that they had that hearing on and the different things there. So we have to be consistent here. And I just think right now, you've got a good line of communication between the jails and the DOC. It's been working well. You already said it's been working well. You put it in the policy. If you haven't already done that, you put it in the policy. The jails are going to work with you as they have been. And I think that takes care of your problem without us having to codify it in law and mandate and put these mandates that we say we don't want to do on the backs of the counties. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Warren.
Madam Chair, one of the issues that was brought up when we were caucusing the bill was around, what happens when the feds are delivering folks to the DOC? Are we creating something that maybe, and I'm going to ask Sheriff Morton to weigh in, are we, excuse me. That's going to happen every once in a while. Are we creating something that maybe the sheriffs can accommodate, but what is going to happen with the feds? Are we then putting something in state law that makes it difficult, or maybe causes more problems? So I just want to put that out there, and maybe Commissioner Liberty, at some point you could respond to that. But I'd like to invite Sheriff Morton, President of Maine Sheriff's Association, to also give us some sort of information about where they are on this.
Thank you, Representative. I appreciate the time. And the Maine Sheriffs voted neither for nor against on this particular bill. We do have a great relationship and continues to be. While there are always speed bumps and challenges, it's a good working relationship with the Department of Corrections. I happen to be one of the sheriffs that attend that meeting every day at noon with Commissioner Liberty and his crew. We're sharing valuable information that I think goes both ways. I think they've picked up tips along the way from the counties, and we've certainly picked up tips from them as far as COVID goes and other practices. Communication is crucial. There's no question about it. And I support the concept of communication. Our only concern, just a little bit, and not being able to fully get behind this, is that there are no real parameters that say, that their intake could be shut down for weeks, months, for a long period of time. And where there's no ramifications for us. That I think is only the real question for us, is that we're at the mercy of the state to tell us that they will take them. Now, the communication as far as medical and MAT that we're working back and forth, and not having too many female or male inmates show up at the right time, I totally get it. I would ask, maybe we could put a little caveat in here that said that all arresting agencies would have to do the same thing for the county jails, coordinate with us before they show up at the door, because we don't have that option. I say that smiling, but we don't have the option of holding off new arrest. We have to go with it. We're the emergency room of a hospital, right? So we're the emergency room of the correctional system. So again, great communications. Please don't, I think the committee should see that is, should be underscored, that we do have good communications. The only question is, without something in here specifically saying, we could be put off for weeks or months. Not that will happen, but it could happen. That's a little bit of the concern. That's all.
I thank you for that, Chair. Oh, excuse me,
No,
Senator.
go right ahead.
That makes good sense and could possibly be something we need to think of for an amendment. So thank you for that, if this bill were to go forward, but thank you for flagging that. Commissioner Liberty, did you want to answer the question about what does the statute, if this particular part was put into the statute, does that interfere with what happens for federal law enforcement agencies dropping folks off?
Thank you, Representative. I see no conflict. Again, it's always just, all we're asking is just to coordinate. That's all it is. All this additional line, the sentence addition to the statute asks is that we coordinate with the dropping off facilities. That's all it is, simplistically. That's all.
So you're saying that you feel like you aren't going to be put in a situation, you think the feds are going to coordinate with you on timing according to this law? We aren't setting up something that we know isn't going to happen, just to put a fine point on it. That's the question I'm asking you.
Yes, I see absolutely no
Okay.
problem with, we're just asking for a phone call and a coordination, that's all. Rather than the rigid, hard time,
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
I'd like to make some comment on everything I've heard. The current law, and Representative Pickett is correct, says the Department of Corrections has complete discretion to determine the initial place of confinement. The amendment is, or the amendment, the added language is to coordinate the date and time. And there were some examples about date and time. It's just not calling up and saying, where am I taking this person? This is how I see this. I have not had really in-depth discussions with the commissioner or with Warden Landry on that. And experience tells me about the feds. Very rarely I've seen drop-offs, it's pickups. It's probably transfer upon release to ICE detainers. And again, I'm going by experience, so I'm acting like someone's testifying. Feds are really much on a timeline. They might have a flight to catch, and so there are certain times, but they've always communicated when they're coming. But it could be all hours of the day because they're driving up from Pennsylvania or something. So I just want to clarify, you know, someone else can, in corrections can, I just want, you know where I'm coming from, and it's just my experience. But again, to focus on what is current, it's determined the place is current. And the added is just give us, just coordinate the time and the date when that person is arriving. I think we've also in caucus had some discussions about, you know, a handshake and coordination goes away at the next election. And this is a proposal to make it a law, to make it lawful, to put it in there. So the next sheriff can see what their do's and don'ts are, rather than another commissioner having another handshake with 15 other sheriffs. So it's standardization in somewhat of, for lack of a better word. So I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to make a motion. I will open up if anybody else. I am looking at, I will recognize Warden Landry's got his hand up. You're muted, Warden. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Senator. You actually just made my point, is that as a warden, I'm less involved in the politics. I can tell you I've been here 7 going on 8 years, and I have seen times when the coordination with the counties and the relationships have been very difficult. And right now we're in a period of time where the relationships are really strong, really solid, and there's excellent coordination. At the end of the day, we're having to sort of experience the realities of whichever way the winds are blowing in that regard. So I think that really does speak to the point of why I would recommend it does go into statute, is that these are just kind of ground rules. We've experienced how well this can work through good coordination with the counties. And, you know, thanks to folks like Sheriff Morton and Commissioner Liberty and other sheriffs that we've been working with, it's working today. We want to preserve that for the long term. And I think it's really in the interest of the residents we serve to do just that.
Sorry, Representative Warren.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Mike, I have a couple of questions. I think what I'm beginning to hear, which is allowing me to understand this better, is that what you all are saying is through this whole process of COVID, relationships and communication and coordination has really improved, probably by this noon call every day. And you've realized, because of this increased communication and what's happening, that this is the way it should always be happening. This has made these issues that are current issues that we've heard about for a long time, males and females being intaked at the same time in the same small space, et cetera, et cetera. This is really taking care of those issues. And so what you're saying to us is, we realize that this is going really well. We'd like to put this into statute. So thank you for that. I think Warden Landry, you drove that point home for me. And so I appreciate that. But I also hear what Sheriff Morton's saying, which is, well, now we're putting something in a statute, but we also know that there's this sort of issue out there that is still kind of hanging, which is what happens if there's a stop in the DOC taking prisoners for weeks at a time. So if we are able to put, or if we are being asked, because that is also what's happening here, that you're coming to us and asking us to resolve this issue, right? So if we are being asked to resolve this issue, are you also in favor of us putting in this statute what does happen to our county jails, AKA our county taxpayers, when the DOC has to say, we're not taking anybody more? What are you willing to put some language around that, understanding that we're creating some guardrails for you? Are you willing to also create some guardrails in statute for our county jails and our sheriffs? Commissioner Liberty, that was a question for you.
Okay, thank you, Representative. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know I don't know what that means. Does that mean within 72 hours, within 48 hours upon notification? Is it maybe that? I don't know what that looks like.
I'm certainly not inclined to spend the time to help you guys figure that out, but I think it's on you, Commissioner, and the Sheriff's Association to have a conversation about what do we put into statute in the future if we have to close our doors to the sheriffs for weeks at a time. That's your work to be done. And the sheriffs are asking you, I think through what Sheriff Morton said, that's the only piece that they need to come on board. And I think it might be a piece that some of us need to come on board and then pass this along. Senator, you're on mute. Senator, you're on mute.
Crying out loud, sorry. I was just asking if anyone from the department wishes to comment on your comment and question. Okay.
Commissioner, you don't have an answer to the question?
I'm not sure of the question. So if the question is, would we be willing to find some language that would, I don't know if there's a time frame, again, 72, 48 hours upon receipt of notification. I don't know what that means. Or, you know, the one time that I'm aware of in my, I don't know, 38 years with counties of the state that we didn't take inmates was during a national pandemic. So I'm not sure. I don't know how that language looks. I don't know. We've
okay,
always
let me try to.
Yeah.
Let me try to clarify. So one of the ways that we're going to do all these bills today, right? We've got 4 bills. And often what happens is we, through this process, see that the folks that are coming to us to have this bill worked, they're pretty close. But there's a little bit of work that, you know, possibly needs to be done. And so we say to them, could you please take this and go work on this together, because I think you're really close to having an agreement. And when you folks come to an agreement, we're ready to sign off, possibly. And so that's what I'm asking of you folks, that you and the sheriffs would come together, and I hear that you're doing that, and I commend that. Get us a little bit closer. And what the sheriffs are asking you for is, can we also put in the statute a little language around what happens if, obviously, this pandemic has changed everything. I'm in my home with 2 little dogs trying to do work sessions. Like, trust me, this is not, my life has drastically changed. But I think that they're asking, we're almost there. This is what we need. Are you willing to go back to the table and see if you can come up with this amendment and bring it back to us? We won't vote on it today. And come back to us and with, yeah, this is where we are. Or no, we aren't willing to go that far, which is also an answer. But I'd like to see you at least consider the request with the sheriffs, and we'll give you a little more time to do that and come back to us with that.
Sure, I'd be glad to.
Thank you.
Okay, I have Representative Costain followed by Pickett, and you've both spoken. If we could start wrapping this up, especially in light of Representative Warren's suggestion. Representative Costain?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say that I agree totally with Representative Warren, and in the fact that my sheriff can't support this the way it's written, I cannot support it either. I think that us asking for some language to protect the county jails, I think is warranted to get this bill passed. Thank you.
Representative Pickett?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make this short and to the point. I move to table to give them a chance to work this out and bring us back something that we can support, because right now I would not be able to support it myself.
I'll second
that.
Representative, I would say I saw Senator Samway seconded that. There's no discussion on a tabling motion. And I'm looking, okay. Our clerk, Deborah, would you please call the roll call, please?
Certainly. Representative Warren?
Yes.
Representative Morales?
Yes.
Representative Reckitt?
Yes.
Representative Sharp?
Yes.
Representative Lookner?
Yes.
Representative Pickett? Representative Costain?
Yes.
Representative Rudnicki? Can you repeat that?
Yes.
Representative Newman?
Yes.
Representative Pluker?
Yes.
Senator Lawrence?
Yes.
Senator Searway?
Yes.
Senator DeChambeau?
No. All right. So there'll be, Commissioner, if you have any questions about that motion, I'm sure Representative Warren could repeat that for you, and we'll have it back. And I wish I could explain to you my no, but we'll talk afterwards, I guess. So, thank you very much. Right now, we're going to go to LD 58. And that is an act to improve information sharing by the criminal justice agencies with government agencies responsible for investigating child and adult abuse. Representative Harnett is Bill. We had a hearing last week on this, and I turn it over to Ms. Orbiton, please. Thank you.
Hi, does anybody know, is Representative Harnett here? Did he plan on attending?
He's unable to attend due to chairing his committee work
Okay.
today,
Sure.
but he
Okay.
knows we're meeting on the bill.
Okay, I will, I'll share my screen, so I guess we'll work it out, but briefly, so that you can see the bill analysis form in case you didn't have a chance to read it. This bill amends Title 16, Chapter 9, the Intelligence and Investigative Record Information Act. I think they call that IIRIA anyway. The act designates intelligence and investigative record information, which I'll just call investigative information for purpose of making it shorter, held by a criminal justice agency as confidential, and it controls its release. The current law allows the release of investigative information that concerns the investigation of suspected abuse, neglect, or exploitation to a government agency that licenses programs for those persons, or to a government agency that is responsible for investigating abuse, neglect, or exploitation. The bill proposes to broaden subsection 1 so that a criminal justice agency can release investigative information to a government licensing agency if the information concerns the investigation of suspected abuse, neglect, or exploitation, or to a government protective agency. Now, I've shortened that, but as pertinent to today's discussion, the government licensing agency would be the agency within DHHS that licenses, say, foster homes or children's homes or homes for people with disabilities. And the government protective agency would be child welfare services, child protective services, also within DHHS. There was testimony from Representative Harnett, also Chris Parr, attorney for the Department of Public Safety, and Dr. Todd Landry, director of the Office of Child and Family Services, Kennebec County Sheriff Ken Mason, and John Pelletier, chair of the CLAC, the Criminal Law Advisory Commission. Penobscot County Sheriff Troy Morton submitted testimony in support after the meeting. There was no testimony, neither for nor against, and none opposed. I'll scroll down a little bit to show you, so all the information that was requested shows up here. Chris Parr was asked whether DOC is a criminal justice agency for purposes of the IIRIA. He was asked whether information related to domestic violence could be shared under the act. Dr. Landry was asked for standards from the Office of Child and Family Services for protecting children. He was also asked for examples of harm that came to children when investigative information could not be shared. He was asked the percentages of families involved with the Office of Child and Family Services that have incomes below the federal poverty level. And he was asked whether the bill would require an appropriations. We did get information from Molly Bogart from DHHS in response to the questions to Dr. Landry. That came in this late morning. Oh, well, I guess it wasn't late morning. I think we started in the afternoon. It came in between 9 and 10 in the morning. And I forwarded it to you in an email. Do you want me to pull that up on screen share?
Right ahead.
Okay. Okay. This is Molly's letter, and I'll scroll down so we cut off the header, but you can see it's from the Office of Child and Family Services in DHHS to you. And maybe Dr. Landry is here from DHHS. I don't know whether Molly is here. Maybe one of them would like to talk to you about any of the items in the memo. Rather than have me go through it, it'd probably be better if the person who's really in the right agency does that.
Well, hi, this is Todd Landry. I'm happy to go through any of this or to answer any follow-up questions that you might have. We have written down some questions that I don't believe were captured by the clerk, and then I think there's one question that was captured by the clerk that I'll also be happy to address. But specifically, one of the questions was about where's the interpretation of the current statute come from, and the examples that we gave that reflected that current interpretation. That is, based on the interpretation from the Assistant Attorney General for the Department of Public Safety. It's been in place for a number of years. From my understanding, and so that has been consistent. I believe Representative Warren, you had asked about that difference between the standards for a child protective investigation versus a legal standard. I think this came about as a follow-up to a question of the department having access to convictions versus investigations. And so we've tried to explain here and provide you references to statute of the different standards for child protective investigations, as well as standards, of course, for legal convictions. And the very last bullet point there does point out this difference between the reasonable doubt standard, of course, in convictions, which is considerably higher, much higher than the standard of preponderance, which is what governs our child protective investigations. So that is one of the reasons why we are asking for this and supporting, I should say, this bill is because of that preponderance standard. We would like to have access to some of those investigative documents and information that would provide information for us in a child investigation, abuse or neglect investigation proceeding. One of the questions was about real world examples. This one is a little bit more difficult. I'll be honest with you on that. To this point is, as you scroll down, Ms. Orbiton, just a little bit, you'll see, one of the things that's difficult about this is the question is, give me examples that came harm to a child because we didn't have access to the information. To a certain degree, it's a little bit about trying to prove a negative. And so we do have a few specific case examples that we have obviously de-identified as it relates to situations that we found out after the fact, after harm had been caused or potential harm had been caused when we didn't have access to this kind of information. So I'm hoping these are some of the examples. Obviously, we don't know everything because we don't know what is in some of those investigative documents, and so we can't necessarily point to cases where harm has come to a child because we don't necessarily know what may be in some of those investigative documents. And so hopefully these are a few examples that will help answer that question. And then last, to Representative Morales's questions, we do want to point out that one of the questions was about how many families, quote unquote, that we interact with are living in poverty using these examples. We do not, at the point of investigation, at that initial point, we do not gather or collect income information. So we can't point to specific data at that point in the process. What we can say is certainly a portion of all of our investigations eventually do become cases with PPOs and jeopardies. in the court system. The majority, I will tell you, of those parents are appointed counsel based on their status as determined by the courts. And so that is one way, I think, of looking at that question. And then the second point that Representative Morales, I believe, made is a concern. Does this mean that we're going to see an increase in the number of children coming into care? That is certainly not our intent of this statute. It's certainly not our intent to ever have that as a guiding principle. However, it is important to note that the information that we gather may not necessarily lead to a child coming in care. It may lead to us being able to provide more appropriate supports and referrals to the family based on the information that we are able to gather, regardless of whether they come into care or not. And then the last question I believe that Ms. Orbiton pointed out was a question I wasn't aware that had been asked. That was about a fiscal impact on this. To our knowledge, I do not believe we have anticipate any fiscal impact on this from the DHHS perspective. I don't know if any other department has issued a fiscal note on this, but to my knowledge, they have not. And again, I'd be happy to answer any follow-up questions that anyone may have.
Thank you, Dr. Landry. I see Representative Morales with her hand up.
Yes, thank you. And thank you so much, Dr. Landry, for providing that information. Just looking at the number of folks, and John Pelletier as well answered the question right after our hearing, that most of these families are represented by counsel, so they are living in poverty. And as you know, I care so deeply about, and so many of us do, but the policy work I work on is around housing, and to make sure that folks have housing security so that then they could not have that stress over them of not being able to have a home and a safe and affordable home, and that really ties into the stress that leads into some of these cases. And so interesting to think about jeopardy cases and what kind of evidence can come into those cases when we think about sharing of data in these investigative files. Because I do have great concerns around that and what could be written in a report. And so as I'm thinking about what you just said, I certainly wouldn't want any of this sort of hearsay, unsubstantiated investigative notes coming in for a jeopardy hearing as evidence. So thinking about whether it can, and whether it can protect a child and provide more services, I fully, I think that I'm willing to consider some of that, but I wouldn't want anything to be used against the family and the child in court. So again, this is hard to really think about altogether. But I was also wondering if you could, and this is, I doubt you have the answer to it, going back just years past, in my experience, having clerked with judges on these removal and jeopardy cases, it's my experience that the judge typically always goes with what the Assistant Attorney General is recommending, and that's usually the result. And so I'm wondering, and I haven't sat with a judge since mid-2000s on these kinds of cases, but could you provide us with that data of, in the past 3 years, for example, how many times a judge ordered against jeopardy when it was requested by the state, just so we can get a sense of that? And then my last point is just around, I know Lois, Representative Reckitt had raised the issue around domestic violence. And since we know that it's really challenging to bring, a protection from abuse civil matter forward for many reasons, right? Because the person who's the victim may not have a safe place to go. They may fear retribution. They may fear future attacks. We know that so many, 14,000, I think, cases go unreported every year. I am concerned about that. And I think that does potentially tie into the safety of a child. So I just wanted to put that out there as having a discussion around maybe reports around domestic violence. And I'll just stop there because I'm rambling a little bit here, but just those are some of the thoughts that are going through my head right now.
Thank you, Representative Morales. Certainly, one of the things that we are looking for with this bill, and I think I've given a number of specific case examples of where harm either came to a child or could have come to a child, but because we didn't have the information that we're requesting. Again, any information that we request and we gather in an investigation, goes into an ultimate determination of whether or not to file for a PPO and ultimately jeopardy. That decision is not made lightly, and I know judges don't make those decisions lightly either. We can certainly attempt to gather some information for you. I don't know if we have it readily available or not, as you requested. But I can tell you there are times when certainly judges do not agree to either a PPO, or more likely they don't, in some cases, don't agree to a jeopardy ruling. And so those situations happen. I think our staff do an excellent job of ensuring that we only file that jeopardy or PPO hearing when it's absolutely necessary for the safety of the child. So I would anticipate that the majority of the cases, the finding is with the department's request. But I think that's more due to the fact that we don't routinely file jeopardy and PPO hearings or PPO requests for issues that can be resolved outside of taking custody of a child.
Thank you.
Jane, before we go on, could you, I think we're set with the screen sharing. Thank you. And then I saw, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I neglected to say that you also got a piece of testimony this morning from Amy Hanscom. I forwarded it to you by email. It's sort of in the form of a page and a half of what would, testimony. Do you want that up on the screen for a little while, or do you want to look at it in your email?
Up to other folks. Did you get it? Have folks seen it?
I've seen it.
I've read it already.
Okay. Then I thank you, Jane. I have next Representative Reckitt and then Senator Searway.
Thank you. I have to thank you, Representative Morales, for remembering domestic violence, as you often do with me. I particularly resonated with Dr. Landry's first example involving the child who was not known to be in the home when a domestic violence incident was occurring, because that is ever so frequently the case. I mean, the police are getting better about checking, but oftentimes kids are in another room or upstairs or someplace, and the presumption is made that they didn't hear a thing, that there's nothing really going on. And the reality is they heard everything, and it impacted them greatly. So I think that that is a particular case around domestic violence that is particularly resonates with me, because I know it's so frequent. And maybe eventually it won't be frequent, but it is right now. So I just, I'm torn around the issue because of the domestic violence implications. And I don't quite know what I'm going to do on this, but I am empathetic to the need for other information being provided. And maybe there's a way to put some kind of barrier around that, or some specifics around in which kinds of cases would you do this, allow investigations to come forward. I don't know if that's the answer. And if it were the answer, I don't know where you would put that barrier. So, but I am empathetic to the bill, and also have great reservations about it. Thank you.
Senator Searway.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to question Dr. Landry. I appreciate this bill. I think that, all the information is important for any of these cases, and the more we can do, the better. But I think that it's got a good intent. I have a concern about the checks and balances of how DHHS works on this, especially like collecting and disseminating of intelligence and stuff. My concern happened right after Bill Diamond had a bill in about the children that were killed, and there was a real push to get more information. And DHHS, we got I don't know how many more staff members because of it, and it seemed right after that there was a real strong push to investigate situations, but it got a little carried away, I thought, especially one of my facilities in the area. I had gotten a call about how DHHS handled it, and they apparently went into their establishment without giving any ID and going through their files and whatever, and also disseminated letters to the area, to parents and whatever, about the situation without contacting them. And it really put a hardship on the whole area. And it was, so I'm just concerned about where the checks and balances come when it comes to being careful about going overboard. And that's what I'm really concerned about. And I don't know if this is the trigger to that, and it may even go even further overboard. And that's what I'm kind of concerned about.
If I may, I'll try to address that. I think the time period that you may be referring to, of course, is a time before I was really here. I wasn't here in the state of Maine, as you may know, having come in 2019. What I can tell you is that historically, whenever there are high-profile cases, such as the one I think that you're describing back in 2017 and into 2018, there can sometimes be a reaction from a policy perspective that either intentionally or more likely unintentionally ends up in an increase in the number of investigations and potentially an increase in the number of children taken into care. And put in another way, some of the data and research on these around the country in these high-profile cases, sometimes when these high-profile cases happen, there tends to be a direction or a response that becomes very risk averse, if you will, and you end up seeing many more children potentially coming into care. I'm not saying that's necessarily what occurred here, but I am saying that is something that you sometimes see across the country whenever you have some of the high-profile cases. As it relates to our actions, whenever we do an investigation, it is the intent that we have is to try to create obviously as little disruption as possible, but we know that disruption obviously occurs, and so we have to be sensitive to that. Now, in the exact case that you're referring to, I can't speak to that without knowing some more details about it. If you wanted to share some more details with us to your knowledge, we'd be happy to look into it and try to find out what may have occurred back whenever that did happen. It sounds like in either 2017 or 2018. But I can tell you that our staff are trained to always ensure that they introduce themselves properly, that they show any type of identification that is requested, that they explain, and there are specific written documentations in multiple languages that are always provided to families and others about what an investigation is, what it isn't, who they can contact for additional assistance, their desires as to how they may wish to, and their ability to answer or not answer questions based on their own desires and positions. So that information is always shared. Again, it is provided both verbally and in writing, and in writing it's provided in multiple language if that's needed, because certainly we certainly don't want to be in a situation where we're inappropriately intervening, but at the same time, we do need to intervene in the case of investigating whether a child is in harm's way or is in a precarious safety situation. I believe we try to balance those pieces out. As it relates to checks and balances, there's numerous ones that are built into the child welfare system. We've already talked about the critical role and vital role of the courts. We've talked about the legal representation that parents have, whether it's provided for them or the court determines that that the parents can provide for that themselves. The children themselves are always appointed guardians ad litem. They're sometimes known as children's attorneys to represent the specific interest of the child. And then there are other aspects of the legal process where related members of the family can have interested or intervener status as granted by the courts. So there are a number of different checks and balances that I believe are built into this. I haven't described them all, but hopefully that gives you some idea of what some of those checks and balances are and how they play into various cases.
Representative Warren, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Landry. This is really helpful information. The part I keep struggling with is very similar to what Senator Searway just brought up, where I can see these two sides that are sort of competing for what the right thing is to do as a lawmaker faced with this choice. And so let me try to give you an example of what I mean. When you gave the examples, which I agree are helpful, the two examples, parents of an infant had a history of domestic violence that we were not aware of because there was no child present. So that makes sense to me. There was no child present, so there wasn't an investigation, or it didn't come on your radar because there was no child present. But what does it mean when we say a history of domestic violence? So, and here's why I'm asking you this question. This might be helpful. I understand, believe me, I want to protect kids and I want to protect elderly, vulnerable folks. Take that extremely seriously. And I also know that my job, when I take a vote, is to also protect all of the folks that I represent, right? That I also have to take into consideration their rights, their protections, their innocent till proven guilty, right? I have to think about those things also, and also very important. And so when I think about recent cases like the Marissa Kennedy case, right? We are responding in many different ways, right? We hired a bunch of caseworkers and we're doing this and we're doing that and now we're doing this. And what I want to make sure of is that we're taking the time, and I know this can't be foolproof, but to make sure that we've identified the right problem. Where was the issue with this case or this case or this case? What's the right problem so that we craft the right solution? And why that's important is if we don't, we may not be protecting children, and we also may be stepping on the privacy rights of our constituents. And then we're doing two things wrong. And so where for some folks, this may seem like a proposal where they just go, oh, absolutely, we're going to protect kids. I'm trying to share with you that for me, it's not that. It's I'm really struggling with a balance here. So that was a lot of words and I apologize for that. But if you could give me any information on that, Dr. Landry, it would help me a lot.
I'll attempt to do that. And I certainly appreciate and obviously respect your position and what you're trying to weigh here in these situations. Perhaps what may be most helpful is to get back to your initial specific example that you referenced in our responses to the committee as it relates to domestic violence. Certainly domestic violence is a serious issue, one that the department takes very seriously, and we provide a significant amount of support to domestic violence agencies to support the victims of domestic violence, and hopefully from the perspective of preventing domestic violence from ever occurring. With that said, we do know, as you have indicated, and as Representative Morales indicated, that domestic violence situations do occur, and when they occur, they can present a serious concern of safety for children as well as the victims of that domestic violence situation. In this specific situation of the bill that's in question, what we're looking at, and what the reason that we provided that example is, if you do in fact have, and we would be able to have access to information regarding a history of police being called for a multitude of domestic violence situations or calls, we know that one of the barriers sometimes for those cases potentially moving forward in the legal process is that sometimes those domestic violence crimes are not pursued because the victim does not testify or chooses not to testify, and that may be out of fear or it may be out of a number of different other concerns. So in that situation, under the bill or under the statute as currently written, which back to Senator Searway's comment, I believe the current statute was drafted in a bill that was introduced by Senator Diamond that gave us access to the conviction data, for example. This would go obviously a step beyond that. And using that domestic violence situation as an example, it would give us access to that information, even if for reasons that I've described, that the victim doesn't choose to pursue any type of legal recourse. We then now would have, under the proposed bill, access to that information that there is a history of domestic violence concerns in the home. And that is something that then we can explore during our investigative process as it relates to the safety of the child and to a certain degree of everyone in the family. Again, it may not necessarily mean that we take any action regarding a PPO or jeopardy, but it may be able to point us in the direction of providing additional resources, additional referrals, and additional information to the family in order for them to get the help that they need in order to continue to assure their family's safety. There will be potentially some situations where information may lead us towards a PPO or a jeopardy filing, but right now we are limited in what we can see based totally on the conviction and not necessarily on all of the investigative information, particularly in the example I gave of when the child was not determined to be present by law enforcement. So I hope that helped to answer your question a little bit. I certainly respect and understand your position of trying to weigh and pay attention to both sides of the equation as you described it. I believe that this provides us with critical information and an avenue to have additional information so that we can make the best decisions for child safety, which is ultimately what we're charged with.
Thank you.
All set, Representative Warren?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Pickett?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Landry, we've talked a lot about the information and what it and so on and so forth, and what it may or may not apply to. But I think the one thing maybe we need to dig down in a little bit here is, what is the real purpose or the goal of the agency who makes a request for information, and what is their goal? What are they going to use that for? I think that really, the reason we need to know that is because the bill that we have in front of us is proposing to broaden so that the government licensing agency If the information concerns the investigation of suspected abuse, neglect, or exploitation, they can release it, or to a government protective agency. And I want to know if the real goal, the real purpose of this is to get as much information we can to take and make sure that we can, the person we're concerned about, whether it be an adult or whether it be a child, that that person is safe and not being abused, not to look at all kinds of other things about everybody else involved, but to look and make sure that we're able to protect the person we're trying to get information on. Am I misreading that, or is that really what this bill is all about, sir?
I believe, from my perspective, that you've identified that exactly correctly from the perspective of OCFS and the perspective of our side, which is, of course, the children's protected side of this. Our goal is, and ultimately we're charged to, and we're called in order to assess the safety of a child, safety first and foremost. And that is in our practice standards. That is what we always focus on. And that is our, number one guiding perspective. So the information that we're attempting to gather and that we do gather currently is all designed around those questions of safety for the child. Now, safety for the child can be from the perspective of abuse, whether that be physical or sexual abuse, or it can be from the perspective of neglect. And so we have to take into account all of those pieces related to either abuse or neglect. And that is why we have a wide variety of issues that can impact a child's safety. From the perspective of neglect, it could be something related to the parent's potential substance use disorder that is interfering with their ability to be able to care for and protect the best interests of their child. From an abuse perspective, obviously that takes on a different tone, and that sometimes is where some of the violence issues come to the forefront, whether they be domestic violence or other kinds of violence. Again, it's all focused around the safety, and whenever we file a PPO or a jeopardy order, it is from that perspective. Again, we get into other pieces related to it from that perspective of overall safety. And as I indicated, it could be abuse, it could be neglect, and those have different aspects that we have to look into.
Thank you, sir.
Whoops. Senator Searway?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to direct a question to John Pelletier. I see him here on the screen. So. I have the same question, kind of. I know that we had a big number of DHHS workers hired at a certain period of time, and it seemed like they were overstepping their bounds when I had a DA and an attorney involved in a situation where they didn't show ID. They sent out papers notifying all the residents in the area when they didn't even let the establishment know about this, and it seemed like it did a lot of harm than good. And I'm just wondering how this bill, if this is even considered overstepping even more. I just want to get an understanding of how this works.
With the chair's permission?
Yes, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
Senator Searway, I certainly can't speak about the incident that you described, but I have been listening to the discussion, and I do want to address the civil liberties concerns that I'm hearing from many of the committee members. First of all, this information is being shared now. The thing is that the sharing of information is confined to when the information relates to abuse or neglect of a child, let's say. So what that comes down to, and what I've gleaned from Director Landry, is if the child is present when you have a police report that talks about domestic violence, DHHS gets that. If the child is not present, DHHS does not get that. It seems to me that is not a relevant criteria. If the threat to the child is related to domestic violence or potentially related to domestic violence, it seems to me that information gathered by law enforcement agencies should be available to DHHS. And on our panel, we had a number of defense lawyers. This issue was not raised. There's been no discussion of a particular incident where investigative and intelligence information was potentially misused in a DHHS case. There are stakeholders that are vigilant about civil liberties, and none are involved with respect to this bill. And the use in court is governed by rules of evidence. There's rules of evidence apply at jeopardy hearings. I'm not exactly sure the PPOs, but it seems to me that the assessment of safety of a child or an older dependent person should be based on the best information available, and that's was the consensus in our group. And particularly having learned through this discussion that the fortuity of whether a child is present when they investigate the overdose, or whether a child is present when there's a police report about a domestic violence incident, that information, if the child is present, that's being shared now. It's been, this bill, this segment is longstanding. And all we're saying is that if the information is relevant to the safety of the child, then it should not necessarily depend on whether the child was present or whether you can find a way to characterize it as an investigation of child abuse. And that was the consensus of our group. And like I say, this information is being shared now. It's being shared in some cases and not in other cases. And it seems to me that the criteria for when it gets shared or not may not be the appropriate criteria. And then there was one, I think it was Representative Puckett, but the law, this does not change the law with respect to licensing facilities. Licensing facilities only get information that's related to an investigation of abuse, both before and if this were to pass. This allows information that's not specifically related to abuse to be shared with an investigatory agency that is responsible for investigating abuse if it's relevant to that investigation.
Very good. Thank you. I don't see anyone else with their hand up. Thank you very much, Dr. Landry, for all that information. So what is the wishes of the committee? Oh, I think I saw Representative Pickett followed by Representative Warren.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Could we have about a 5-minute break to discuss this?
Great minds think alike, Representative. That's exactly why I was raising my hand.
Okay. Now, who's going to decide? I'm going to defer to you, Representative Warren, how we do this here with everybody here.
I'll send folks a quick email to jump on our Zoom.
Yeah. And Representative Pickett as the lead of the.
Yeah, we are all present here at the
Okay.
Capitol except for the senator, and he'll be dialing in to be part of our caucus.
All right, so Representative Warren, when we receive your link, we will hop onto that.
Yep.
Right?
Leave here and go to your email.
Okay, thank you. Now you guys behave. Deb, are we still on YouTube? You,
Yes, we are.
okay.
Looks like most folks are back.
I think Lois is missing.
She's here.
Okay. All right, we shall resume. Do you see Representative, oh yeah, Costain, is he here? Okay.
Yep,
All
he's
right,
here.
here we are. No, we broke up. There was some discussion. Does anybody wish to make a comment or? I have, let me double check here. Representative Warren, I have John Pickett Warren.
Yep, that's the right order.
Is that me, Madam Chair?
Yes, I have you, Pickett and Warren.
Oh, someone's.
Whoa.
So-
Go right ahead. Representative Chop?
Yes, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Because of how much information that we're talking about here, between the sharing of information and back and forth, I would like to request to table this issue.
There's a motion to table.
I'll second.
Turn your volume down on your thing.
There's been a motion to table. It's not debatable, and it's been seconded by Representative Warren. We'll have a vote. Ms. Fahey?
Representative Warren,
Yes.
Representative Morales,
Yes.
Representative Reckett,
Yes.
Representative Sharp,
Yes.
Representative Lookner,
Yes.
Representative Pickett,
No.
Representative Costain,
Yes.
Representative Rudnicki,
No.
Representative Newman,
No.
Representative Fluker,
Yes.
Senator Lawrence. Not here. Senator Searway,
No.
Senator DeChambeau,
Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear Representative Renicki's vote, please.
that was no.
No? Okay, thank you. All right. We are 25 minutes away from our next meeting. I hope you all have the Zoom. Okay, it's the MIAC Zoom. We'll see you at 1 o'clock somewhere else.
Senator
Yes.
DeChambeau, we have another bill on our list today.
Did I make a mistake?
We have LD 180 that we haven't brought up yet.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Yep. So we'll, LD 180, an act to amend the storage requirements for consumer fireworks. And that's been submitted by Public Safety and Representative Perkins. So I turn it over to Ms. Overton and and it's my thickest report.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is a department bill from the Department of Public Safety, and the Office of the Fire Marshal is within that department, and it's sponsored by Representative Perkins. The bill was brought forward after a 2020 ruling in a court case named Bryant versus Department of Public Safety, Office of the State Fire Marshal, Bill Big Al's Outlet, and Alan and Melissa Cohen. In that case, the court ruled that the Cohens, owners of Big Al's Outlet, are required to seek a license for their building on JB Way in Wiscasset, in which they store fireworks to be sold later to consumers from their licensed store on Route 1. The court ruled that under Title 8, Section 223A, subsection 4, the fire marshal can issue a license for storage and sale of consumer fireworks to the building for the building on Route 1, but they cannot issue a license for storage only. That would be the building on JB Way. So the fire marshal submitted this legislation as a proposal. In the words of the bill summary, this brings the laws governing the storage of consumer fireworks into conformity with a recent Maine court decision by authorizing the Office of the State Fire Marshal to regulate consumer fireworks storage by those who are authorized by law to sell consumer fireworks. I'll put the, let me screen share. Okay, so we've been through the beginning of that there, and I'll start you with the notes and about the testimony and some other notes. So it is a department bill, and there were the Assistant State Fire Marshal Richard McCarthy testified in favor. Tom and Kathleen Bryant, who've been involved with the department and with Big Al's, and Alan and Melissa Cohen, they've all been involved in a fair amount of litigation over this over years. They provided testimony in favor, provided the bill is amended. And in their amendments, they want a definition in the law of a residential area. They want a distance of 1,000 feet between the storage building and a residence. And they want a 300-foot distance from a road, both a public road and a private road that is used by the public. Attorney Jonathan Pothole from Bangor spoke with regard to the bill, and he is the attorney for the Bryants. Curtis Picard spoke for the Retail Association of Maine, saying that some of the interested parties had been talking. Daniel Pert submitted testimony, I think he was there too, for phantom fireworks. And there are a number of issues. I'll scroll down a little bit to the issues, so in case you didn't have a chance to look at this, there are the issues. I know that the parties have been talking, and I don't know how far they have gotten, or given the history of litigation, I'm not really sure what the possibilities are of their reaching an agreement. So I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Robertson. If it's okay with the committee, I'd like to ask Rich McCarthy of the State Fire Marshal I believe since our meeting, he may have had some discussions with his own department and had ideas. And I'm not sure if you talked with the Bryant. So, Mr. McCarthy, could you share with us how you think we can resolve this?
Thank you, Senator DeChambeau. Yes, we've had some discussions. I've had discussions with Phantom Fireworks as far as their request to include trailers and storage buildings. We already have that in our rule, but we have no issue with adding it into the statute. I had a long conversation with Jonathan Pottle yesterday to bring some information up. The big discussion for us is the request for 1,000 feet for distance from a consumer fireworks storage building. NFPA 1124 is a standard that governs consumer fireworks storage and sales. Now, I did some additional digging. The 2013 version, which is mentioned in this, has actually been rescinded by NFPA. NFPA has rescinded 2013 and 2017 versions, any reference to consumer fireworks due to some issues not getting fire data and things such as that. So we would be looking at the 2006 version, which we currently have part of that adopted. Now, one thing that Mr. Pottle and I discussed is the number 1,000 feet actually is derived from NFPA 495. NFPA 495 is a standard for explosives. Consumer fireworks are not explosives. So using that number would be putting I believe, too strict an issue or requirement upon consumer fireworks stores. I know this morning I forwarded to Ms. Orbiton a document put out by the American Pyrotechnics that they actually referred to both ATF and Department of Transportation and also NFPA have done studies on consumer fireworks stores. And the thing that it really comes down to is storing consumer fireworks is no different than storing any combustible material. Consumer fireworks in a fire event within a building does not explode. It is not like it's not like a high explosive. So that is why NFPA 1124 actually uses the number 300 feet from a building having any sort of fuel, and the number 50 feet from any other building. We have in ours, we use 30 and 60 because when this original legislation was passed back in 2010-11, to be perfectly honest, we borrowed from New Hampshire. New Hampshire has this program. I actually did discuss this issue with the National Association of State Fire Marshals representative on the 1124 committee. And 1124 2006 version is currently used in New Hampshire as well to govern the storage of fireworks, consumer fireworks. The big issue here is the question, because within that standard, it says you cannot be within 50 feet of a public way, and you can also not store consumer fireworks in a residential area. There is no definition in NFPA for residential area. That is where the rub begins, because within certain areas within the state of Maine, there may not be zoning. So then who is it up to decide if an area is residential, commercial, what the area is? Our office, we do not, or we should not become the zoning folks, that's not in our wheelhouse. And so that, or land use. So that is really one of the toughest questions. Now we did, I have not spoken to Mr. Pottle today. He is going to reach out to me later this week to see where we stand, to see if we can come back with something that is more amenable to everybody. But at this point, the NFPA 495 should not be used because that specifically, the scope for that is explosives, not consumer fireworks. And I am open for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy, for that. You've just spoke about many pieces to that big puzzle. I think some of the members, when they got your report, decided to print it, and it's 71 pages long. So that's something that is in your corner to decipher. And I would leave it up to the members. I am seeing Representative Warren's hands up. Representative Warren?
Thank you, Senator DeChambeau. Thank you, Rich. This is helpful. And you said that although it's in your rules, it's not in this language yet, but you are willing to put in an amendment around if alternative storage items may be used. I can't remember what the person's name who asked us about that. Can you say that?
Yes, that is Daniel Pert from Phantom Fireworks. His concern was that you would have someone that may not dig. It's already listed in the standard, but their concern is that they have someone who may not be reading the standard and want something more. So we're very willing to put that into the statute to allow that.
Thank you. Senator, you're on mute. Senator, you're on mute.
Gosh, thank you. I had Representative Lookner, Pickett, and Newman, and now Costain.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Mr. McCarthy. I'm not a scientist or a ballistics expert, but I've, had my fair share of playing with fireworks. Is there a limit on the amount of consumer material that could be stored potentially in one of these facilities, or is that not mentioned? Because I can imagine the hazard increases with the amount of material that's stored in one of these places.
Yes, Representative. First of all, under the 2006 version of 1124, it actually is a square footage maximum and clearances for aisles and things such as that. The theory is that with those requirements in place, that would allow, if there was a fire in one of these buildings, they are required to be non-combustible, that it would basically contain any of the effects that usually come with fireworks. Actually, I've requested we have a fire that occurred in a fireworks store in New Hampshire, and I actually have the video that's being sent to me. And I would share that with the committee. And you will see that basically consumer fireworks burn like a regular combustible. I wouldn't suggest being inside a storage building that's on fire. But it is not a higher hazard, and that's all the safety factors are built into the standard as far as how much. The hard part is when you determine the amount of product, typically with a firework, it's about a quarter of the overall weight. So if you have a pound of fireworks box and product and everything, it's usually about 25%, which is actual pyrotechnic material. So it's very hard to get exact numbers.
Just a quick follow-up, if I may.
Yes, you may.
Yeah. Fireworks contain ammonium nitrate, correct? That's the pyrotechnic material.
There is some. There's also proprietary materials in there, but there is a small amount of that. Yes.
Yeah, and that's the real dangerous stuff. That's the stuff that blew up in Beirut, correct?
Well, when you look at that, that has to be a very large amount. If we look at, say, West Texas, that explosion there, we're talking tons and tons of ammonium nitrate. I can get you, if you would like, a breakdown of what is in a typical firework. I will get that and forward that to the committee.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm thinking that next was Representative Pickett.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't know which chair was going to recognize me.
I didn't know either.
Mr. McCarthy, I hear that you're willing to talk with Daniel Pert and dealing with that situation there that he brought up. But as you were going down through your statements at the opening, it sounded to me like you had some differences with some of the proposed amendments to the bill from the Bryants. I think the 1,000-foot one was from a storage building in a residence. That was one of them. And I think also you said there was an issue with defining residential area. So are you, from my world, the law enforcement world, a residential area is a built up section where there isn't more than I think it's 250 feet between buildings for a certain length of space that turns around and makes it into a residential from a non-residential area, and that's how they do the speed limits and that kind of stuff like that. I think I also think the Bryants actually mentioned that in part of their testimony. I think of something similar to that definition. So you're saying you find it problematic to put a residential area, a definition of a residential area in the bill. So and because I think what I'm saying here is I'm asking you, are you willing to work on these issues as well as with Mr. Pert's issue, and then come back to us with a bill that I know you may not be able to get everything in there, but with a bill that that we can try to work with as many of these amendments as we can placed in the bill, and then justifying why you made changes to this or that when you do that, which would make it very, very much easier for us, I think, to determine as to whether or not we've gone far enough and we can work with the bill. Thank you.
Representative Pickett, I'm more than willing to work with all stakeholders to try to craft something that will work. As you always know, our office, we try to stick with the national standards, and I would really hate to incorporate explosive standards into a consumer fireworks, because we're sort of talking apples and oranges. But I'm more than happy to bring everybody involved to the table to see if we can craft something that works for everybody.
Yes, and follow up, please.
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, Mr. McCarthy, and the only trouble is when I start hearing the word "in theory" and things like that, that's problematic to me, especially when you're talking about a combustible. So I just want to make sure we get all of our I's dotted and all of our T's crossed before we codify this into law.
Most definitely, Representative, public safety is, that's our goal. I mean, we want to make it safe for everybody.
Representative Newman?
Yes, Madam Chair. Rich, I did want to check which version of the 1124 is the state actually operating on right now? Is it the newest one, or the one that was you sent over? 17.
No, actually, we sent the 17 because that was the newest, and then I was advised by the Standards Council that they have recently voted to basically strike everything consumer firework out of 17 and 13. So we are currently only have chapter 7 of 1124 2006. So I would probably use the 2006 or 2009 because those are the only last two that actually still contain consumer fireworks references. They're published, but they have no weight to them because the Standards Council has removed them. So we would be looking at the 6 or the 9, which was sent to you just recently.
Okay. And could I have a follow-up with that
Go
too?
right ahead. Yep.
As you know, obviously, when we both come from the fire department, and the last thing I would want to see in Belgrade would be somebody building a big storage unit, in between a couple houses with woods in between and everything else, without having some kind of clearances. Just because there's a big difference between rural mixed-use areas and more of a commercial area where all of the buildings are either steel or brick, with alleyways in between them. And if you have a fire in one of those buildings, it's a little easier to contain without it spreading to the woods or anything else combustible. Mm-hmm. So I would be much more in favor if you are willing to go back and work with some of the stakeholders to maybe in our areas, especially in the mixed use areas, to increase some distances.
Most definitely, Representative. We'll take a look at that. And like I said, I will put together a 1124 cheat sheet for the committee that will basically break down clearances and things that are already in that standard.
Mm-hmm. Great. All set, Representative Newman? Good. I have Representative Costain, Sharp, and Pickett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. McCarthy, my question is if this law was to go into effect, is the people that's already there grandfathered, or how do you do that?
No, actually, because this would be a new statute, we would actually, because currently we do not license consumer fireworks storage. We do the sales with the storage. So basically the temporary storage, but there is nothing in the law that talks about separate buildings off of site of a consumer fireworks retail store. That's why this is here, is because that was eliminated or was never put into the original legislation. So this is so that we can actually look at storage. Currently, there's another fireworks retailer that they handle their storage differently. They actually store it in magazines because that's something we do have control over, and I can issue permits on magazines. The magazines are more than you would need for consumer fireworks storage, but that's how they choose to handle their storage. This is just going to give more options to the retailers to store their fireworks safely.
Thank you. Follow-up question?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy, what's the difference between like a tractor trailer storage or a magazine? Can you explain the difference of the two?
Well, when you talk about the types of storage capabilities, you can use basically the rear end of a tractor trailer unit, which could be type 4 magazine, or what would be known as a Connex box or something to that effect. And then as you go each type of magazine and you go up through the types, as far all the way to type 1, you can actually store more volatile substances, such as 1.3s, 1.2s, and 1.1s, as far as when you talk about explosives, when you get into the 1.1. So it's basically matching the type of storage to the hazard.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Sharp, excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as the NFPA is the minimum standard, but nothing precludes local municipalities from either strengthening that law under their own municipality. Do I have that correct?
You are correct, Representative. So the NFPA, what we adopt at the state level would be the minimum standard. A local municipality could enact a more stringent, or they could put additional requirements upon what we would do. They would just have to meet the minimums that we have.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Representative Pickett.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I would move to table this bill.
I'll second.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Who was that?
Representative Warren.
Oh, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Ms. Fay, if you could call the roll call, please.
Representative Warren,
Yes.
Representative Morales. She's still with us.
I think she had to step away for another meeting.
Representative Reckitt,
Yes.
Thank you.
Representative Sharp,
Yes.
Representative Lookner,
Yes.
Representative Libby.
Representative Pickett,
Thank you, Madam.
Yes.
Representative Costin,
Yes.
Representative Rudnicki,
Yes.
Representative Newman,
Yes.
Representative Pluker,
Sorry, yes.
Senator Lawrence. He's not here. Senator Searway,
Yes.
Senator DeChambeau.
Yes. Well, fine way to start the session, isn't it? But these are really important bills, and they're very involved, and we're relying on our department heads to come back with different language. I think they've all heard us today. So good work. It doesn't look like we accomplished much, but we will, and it will be a better report. Again, I think we, unless anybody had any questions or statements they wish to make, we have a meeting that started 5 minutes ago. So anyone? Not? Representative Warren, I'm going to go buy a gavel. Here's my stapler. I call this meeting ended. All right. So thank you very much. See you guys in a few minutes. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jane and Deb. Thank you very much.